Yeah, I'm Ian Evans. I'm the Managing Director for AirWatch for the Europe, Middle East and African part of our business. AirWatch is a mobile device management company. We're essentially a security company securing mobile devices, provisioned through policies, but really enabling and empowering end users of these smart devices, tablets, phones, laptops, throughout organizations, BYOD strategies, out into all types of verticals. We're now looking at many of the smart government initiatives, smart retailing. There's a lot of innovation that goes on in this country, and I think this is really where the UAE's mantra really is to push all the boundaries of innovation. Technology is one of those things that allows us to do so. Mobile technology especially being very quick to adopt, very easy to deploy. It needs to be secured. There's a lot of data that goes to these devices, and that's where a solution like AirWatch steps in. But certainly enabling and empowering people to perform those new business functions. And I think here at the show today, we've seen a lot of fairly interesting innovation leading its way into the Internet of Things, which is coming quicker to the UAE than probably most other countries. So I think this is a well-placed event. This has been a really fast-paced industry. So if we think back to 4 years ago when we were looking at devices and device management and then into enterprise mobility, and now we're moving really into end-user computing and what does mobility really mean to a business, and I think that's quite key. So security will change, the way that we identify ourselves will change. Internet of Things will push that boundary, so we won't be a device anymore. We've moved from a device to being a person. That person will become an identity. And then the way that we will interact with our organizations, interact in our personal lives, with our homes, with the building, with our cars and our vehicles, will start to really expand. And I think if you look at some of the smart government initiatives here, that's just another example of innovation that goes across an entire government, and your identity will be key to how that drives. So I think that's going to be one of the key factors of moving this mobility era on to the next level. This is pretty key, and I talk to a lot of organizations about this. So you can either get the first 100 people perfect, or get everybody under control and figure out the use case that drives your organization. The majority of companies don't know the use case. So they understand that they need mobile, and they start usually with the wrong audience, usually the C-level suite that wants mobile, and the enablement piece is more key. So our guidance really is, let's get everything under control first, and let's figure out how those use cases are working in the organization. Do they actually work for a start? I think that's a very key factor. Are they right? And then what are we trying to achieve? I often talk to people about beyond 6 months as well. This is a very fast-paced industry. Most organizations try to fix today's problem, and today's problem really expands itself very quickly into what's happening tomorrow and beyond, and especially with mobile and looking at the adoption rates of devices, it's very, very quick to see how this can just expand and explode throughout organizations. So BYOD, we focused on BYOD for many years now, and I think it's been more successful in America than it has really anywhere else. In Europe, we have very strict regulations around data protection and privacy that really stop us being that successful mixing corporate data and personal data. The UAE, I think, was the first country where you would get more than one device out of your pocket. So everybody I spoke to had 1, 2, 3 devices, plus a tablet, plus a laptop, plus. So really it has the highest number of devices to person ratio I think that I've ever seen. The main issue is, once you start to push data to these devices, you need to think about the data, not the device. The data is the important factor. And again, it comes back to my use case scenario. So there's 2 factors I think you need to think about. One is the impact on the organization, and then one is the nuisance factor to the end user. Because if we lock down a device, we essentially take away the reason that you bought it. So we want to make sure that you have an unrivaled experience by using that device because you chose that device. We want to make sure that we limit the number of devices so the company can maintain them. And then I think you need a multiple tiered strategy around BYOD, all the way from managing the device for high corporate users, or a container where you just want to manage certain applications, or taking it all the way down from managing the device and the container down to just managing an app. Because maybe the clocking in, clocking out, HR, payroll, time and attendance, is the right app that you want, and that enables you to go mobile. But I think you have to come up with this trend analysis of what do you need. The UAE also has a difference as well. It's a market that's probably a slower market to adopt technology, and I would say that most people are looking for that event that triggers something that makes us embrace technology. We've seen the technology being embraced. I think for the last 3 or 4 years, the personal phone has either been an Android-style device or an iOS device, and we've seen a lot of Windows devices push out through the UAE. That in itself gives a vulnerability, because most of these are also carrying corporate email on them as well. I think the main thing really is that rather than waiting for an event to trigger something, we need to assume that the event is going to happen at some point. So what happens if somebody leaves? What happens if somebody goes rogue? What happens if we leave the device in the overhead bin of an aircraft and we lose corporate data? And it's just the level of severity of the loss. And then we work around that to make sure that you have a good strategy around it. I mean, that's it. I think it starts there, and then it looks at enablement. And really the benefits of the mobility solution are, how do we enable our people to have the right data at the right time and place? And that's where mobile really works.